Born of petals, bound by flame, the untold heart of Jin-mi, a flower deity whose love was sealed by fate, torn between fire and night, and forged anew in the ashes of war, where sacrifice bloomed and love awoke through pain, memory, and the courage to choose. I was born not of flesh but of bloom, a child of the flower realm, cradled by mist and song, untouched by the darker edges of the world. My mother was long gone before I ever drew breath, leaving behind only a legacy too dangerous to fulfill. To protect me, the elders gave me a pill on the day of my birth. It nestled deep in my body, silencing the most dangerous emotion of all, love. Because of it, I lived in stillness. No longing, no ache, no flutter of the heart. The sky changed, the petals fell, and I existed among them, watching joy and sorrow pass through others as though behind a veil. The flower realm was gentle, its days guided by warm breezes and the perfume of eternal spring. I never asked for more. I didn't even know that I could. Then he fell. It was as if the sky had split open. Thunder cracked across the heavens and flames tore through the clouds. A figure fell from above, his body trailing fire like a comet. He crashed near my garden, sending petals scattering and ash darkening the emerald moss. I ran toward the impact, uncertain of what I would find. What I found was the beginning of my end. He was broken, wings scorched, skin blistered, fire leaking from every pore of him. I didn't know his name. I only knew that something inside me, something beyond instinct, compelled me to kneel, to press cool petals against his skin, to coax life back into his body. His fire should have consumed me, but it didn't. It curved around me, as though recognizing something buried deep within. That was my first memory of Shufeng. In the days that followed, he recovered in our realm, hidden from the politics and punishment of the heavens. I watched over him. He wandered the gardens with curiosity, never quite at ease among the gentle spirits of the flower realm. There was tension in him, a restlessness that flared even in silence. He carried burdens I couldn't name, anger, sorrow, and responsibility. But he softened around the flowers, around me. I still didn't feel love, not as it should be. I smiled when he smiled, I listened when he spoke, but my heart remained a quiet garden but empty. Still, I sensed something beginning, an unraveling, as though he was sunlight and I was frost learning to melt. When he left, he invited me to follow. The heavenly realm was nothing like the flower realm. It was cold and brilliant, constructed from cloud and jade, steeped in ancient authority. Every gesture carried consequence. Every word was watched. I arrived in a world I did not understand, but with Shufeng by my side, I did not fear it. That is where I met the second prince, the god of night, Anew. Where Shufeng was fire, Anew was moonlight, quiet, gentle, distant. He didn't try to dazzle, he simply saw. He watched the court with careful eyes, navigated its politics with grace, and offered his presence like a lantern in the dark. When he looked at me, I didn't feel the burn that Shufeng left behind. I felt steadiness, peace, but the pill in me still kept my heart closed. Days in the palace moved slowly. The heavenly emperor and his consort ruled with iron elegance, and I was merely a foreign and unfamiliar guest. I drifted between courts and chambers, a flower out of season. Shufeng remained at the center of flame and duty, his strength drawing both admiration and resentment. Anew, ever composed, seemed to orbit the court at a distance, untouched but always aware. The tension between them was quiet at first, a gentle shift of posture, a shared silence too long. Their rivalry was not loud, but it was deep, older than the wounds they admitted. And I, without understanding, found myself caught between them, tethered by invisible strings I could neither sever nor see. As days turned, Shufeng began to change. He grew more distracted, more burdened. Rumors swirled, tales of demon unrest, of hidden plots. The court grew uneasy. Whispers turned into strategy. Shufeng, ever noble, sought peace. He took a risk the court did not approve. And then everything collapsed. I didn't defend him. I didn't speak. The pill, still anchoring my heart, held me in silence. I watched as they took him. I watched as Anew stepped forward not with cruelty, but with cold necessity and delivered judgment. The betrayal in Shufeng's eyes as he looked at me cut deeper than any blade. I told myself it was my duty, that I couldn't feel, but something inside me had cracked. He was exiled, and I was left behind. In the aftermath, Anew came to me. His presence was no longer simply quiet, it was grieving. He stayed close, but not possessive, gentle but firm. He told me who I truly was, not just a flower deity, but something ancient and dangerous, born of both deity and demon. My existence was a threat to the realms. That's why the pill had been given to me. But he still loved me still. I couldn't understand that. Not yet, but something shifted. I found the antidote. I took it. It was like the sky crashing into the sea. A flood of memories I hadn't known were mine. Emotions I couldn't name pressed against my chest until I screamed. And in that maelstrom, one truth burned bright. I loved Shufeng. The realization didn't come sweetly. It came with fury and guilt and longing so sharp it fractured me. Every memory of him, once dulled by the pill, now returned in vivid color. His laughter, his wounds, his silence. I had abandoned him. I had let him fall alone. I had to find him. The moment my heart awakened, I felt the weight of my silence as a crushing tide. Every step I had not taken toward him, every word I had never spoken, they all echoed in my chest like missed chances carved into bone. I could no longer pretend to be a spectator in my own life. I left the palace behind and descended into the forgotten lands where Shufeng had been cast. The journey stretched long and harsh, filled with reminders of the cost of pride and the cruelty of divine politics. Yet my resolve held. I needed to see him not only to confess, but to redeem the choice I had never made. When I found him, he was changed. The fire that once cloaked him in glory had turned inward, banked into embers. He had built a life of solitude, each stone and scar a testament to survival. And still, when he turned and saw me, something shifted in the still air around us. I saw recognition, pain, and something else only a heart unshackled could name. In the quiet that followed, something unspoken passed between us. The distance was bridged not by words, but by presence. Where once I would have hesitated, now I simply stood beside him. And that was enough. The weight of love, newly born and painfully sharp, filled the space between us. But peace was never ours to hold. The cracks between the realms widened. The demon realm rose with renewed vengeance, emboldened by ancient grievances and divine instability. War gathered like thunderclouds over the horizon. I returned with Shufeng, no longer a flower deity content with passivity, but something more, something born from duality. I was fire and bloom, light and shadow. I was ready. At the palace, Anew awaited us. His gaze met mine, and in it I saw everything that had remained unsaid. Not blame, but mourning. His love for me had been slow and patient, a garden tended in silence, and now I had returned with flames in my wake and another in my heart. Still, he did not recoil. He only stepped aside, bearing the burden of love unreturned with a dignity that split something fragile inside me. The heavens tore open. Battle came not in whispers, but in roars. The skies burned, the earth trembled. Armies of gods and demons clashed across realms once kept separate. And in the chaos, the truth of us was revealed not in the fire of our magic or the sharpness of our swords, but in the way we moved together. Shufeng fought like a man who had already lost everything and had nothing left but love to protect. Anew stood as the realm's shield, bearing the weight of the divine with aching precision. And I embraced what I had been created to be. Not a destroyer, not a savior. Simply someone who chose to act. My power, once locked beneath silence and spell, surged like a forgotten storm. I channeled it not as wrath, but as release. Petals spun like blades around me, lit with fire, rooted in sorrow. I stood between the warring realms and let my magic pour out, not to kill, but to cleanse. The battlefield fell into a hush. Ash drifted like snow. Weapons clattered to the ground. Breaths slowed. The war had not ended, but something in it had broken a momentum halted by the sheer force of loss and love unshackled. But it came at a cost. My body, stretched by power and pain, buckled. I collapsed among the embers and petals, consciousness slipping. Before I fell fully into the dark, I felt warmth on one side from Shufeng's fire and cool steadiness on the other from Anew's shadow. I was held by both, and in that I knew love did not need to be singular to be real. When I awoke, the war had passed. The demon realm had retreated, the heavenly realm had begun to rebuild. Peace, uncertain and trembling, took its first breath. I did not seek titles or power in the aftermath. I returned to the gardens, those untouched spaces where time moved with a gentler rhythm. Shufeng stayed with me, not as a prince, not as a god, but as the man who had burned and endured and still chose to love. We planted new seeds together, not just in soil, but in time and memory. Anew remained in the palace. He ruled not with bitterness, but with quiet purpose. He visited sometimes, always alone. We would walk among the flowers, silent. I would feel the weight of what could have been, what he had given freely and without demand, and I would be grateful, even in sorrow. Seasons passed, the garden grew. I often stood at the edge of the hill overlooking the valley, watching petals ride the wind. In those moments, I thought of who I had been, naive, restrained, and unsure. I thought of how love had come to me not as a whisper, but as a storm, and how, even though it had broken me, it had also made me whole. Love, I learned, was not a single moment or a single man. It was a choice, a vow made again and again in the face of fear, of grief, of time. It was courageous to hold someone's hand, even when the world crumbled around you. It was sorrow that did not ask to be soothed. It was a sacrifice. And it was worth everything. As dawn brushed the sky in amber and gold, I turned back toward the garden. Shu Feng waited, warmth flickering in his eyes, arms steady and open. I walked toward him, toward the future we had rebuilt not from perfection, but from pain. And behind us flowers bloomed again, always still.